one of the problems we had when we built the game in 2017 was that we couldn't market it. Google, Facebook, all the main channels for advertising mobile games were a bit scared of Bitcoin, a bit timid around it. One of the things we were worried about is, it's not enough. People aren't going to be bothered by it because it's a sense. That's not true. Like, people just like receiving free Bitcoin, whether it's 100 sats or 1 or 10, like, it still means something to people. Our best product is Bitcoin Miner. Like, if we look at like revenue per user, for example, Bitcoin Miner like blows everything else out the water, really. It increased our 30-day retention, so users who would come back after a month, like 1,000%. It was like a ridiculous number. If we look at popular services, the way they grow is through gamification, right? So, we looked at the TripAdvisors where, complete these 3 rewards, you'll get your badge. We looked at Google do that on Google reviews. Gamification is a way for even non-game products to grow. So it's the way to scale. I do believe that. We knew we were never going to do a token, and we never will. Like, I don't see any benefit of making your own token for a game. Why would a player want it?
Paul West is the founder of Fumb Games, a mobile gaming studio that has earned over 10 million downloads across their suite of games, including over 1 million downloads for their Lightning-enabled game called Bitcoin Miner. In our conversation, we explored how Paul's team thinks about designing compelling games. We talked about why gaming is the perfect venue to onboard new Bitcoin users. And then we got into the dramatic impact on retention that Paul's team saw when they added Lightning payments natively in their Bitcoin Miner game. If you enjoy this episode and if you learn something new, the best way you can show your support for the show is to send in sats over the Lightning Network. You can use any podcasting 2.0 app to do that. There are dozens of them out there, but my favorite one to use is Fountain. Before we get into today's show, just a quick message from our sponsors. Today's show is sponsored by Voltage. Voltage is the premier provider of Bitcoin and Lightning node infrastructure. Today's show is also sponsored by Stackwork. And Stackwork is a Lightning-powered transcription tool that takes the best of AIs and humans to create better, faster, and less expensive transcripts. We'll have more from Voltage and Stackwork later in the show. Paul, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to talk about Fumb Games and all that you're working on. But first, before we get into that, why don't you step back and give listeners a little perspective and tell them about, how you first discovered Bitcoin and the Lightning Network.
Sure thing. Thanks for having me, Kevin. I've been following you on Twitter since you started this, and it's been great to see the growth of this and your, everything you've shared so far. So it's great to be here. I am Paul West. I am the founder of Fumb Games. Fumb Games is a mobile game studio based in the UK, and we make idle games. But the question is, how did I get into Bitcoin? So I kind of delved into Bitcoin around 2017 was when I first someone emailed me. I've still got the email saying, you should check this out. It's pretty exciting. I bought a book, Building on Blockchain, I think, and was just kind of delving into the technology of it. Understood about 10%, but the 10% I understood, I loved, and then explored more and more and got a bit of a better grip. And it was around that time that I had a game studio that was a couple of people, and we were looking for the next thing to build. And I just got the bug for Bitcoin and blockchain specifically. So we kind of went down that route and said, okay, well, there's not much on the App Store that has any thematic Bitcoin elements. There's maybe one game, I think. It's always good to own a niche, especially when the niche is as exciting as something like Bitcoin. So that was kind of where I got into it and where we started first building. We'll talk about that journey and what that actually meant in terms of building specifically with games and with Lightning now, kind of, I guess, in this conversation.
Yeah. So that was Fumb Games that you were building back in 2017, is that correct?
Yeah, so the company was founded in 2015, and in 2017 we made the first version of Bitcoin Miner, which is our biggest game in our history.
Very cool. What was the reasoning that you decided to build out Fumb Games?
Okay, great question. So I worked for an advertising company at the time that put advertisements in mobile games. So we call it rewarded video. So watch this video and earn some currency in the game. I was working at the company that created that. So apologies if that annoyed people. It did empower loads of very cool games. So that's the other side of this. But I worked for that company, and I obviously was working with lots of different game studios in Europe and in the US. And there were some really great games that were going to the top of the charts, but there were also some really, um, I would say, indie friendly games that could make it to the top of the charts. So in my head, I was like, oh, I could make that if I had like a developer and an artist. Like, it only need three people. I can see what they've done. So it's quite funny. I started. It was a side hustle for about 5 years. Fun Games. I was full time employed, working at different companies. They were all cool that I had it as a side project because it kind of helped the main company. Like, we'd use it for testing the main products where I worked. I actually have a letter from my original boss who says, "You can do this side hustle as long as it doesn't impact your day to day work and it doesn't earn over £1 million a year." And it took ages to do that. So that was not a problem. But that's kind of what started the idea of Fumb Games, just like fun for your thumb, portrait games, very accessible, and yeah, very small teams to be able to build and test quickly.
Very cool. Now, this mechanism you just mentioned about being able to watch something and earn some in-game kind of currency, was that just a proprietary game currency, or was this actually earning in dollars or pounds or euros?
Yeah, I should be clear. So this is like in-game currency, so coins, gems, typical things that you find in kind of free-to-play games specifically.
Very
That's
cool.
yeah, that's what I mean.
And talk to me about the transition from that in 5, 6, 7 years ago to now what we have with lightning payments where you're earning sats. What are the similarities and differences in terms of like the gaming experience itself between those two concepts?
So I think it enhances a lot. It enriches a lot for the player. So I think why it's been successful for us is, when we make games, we talk about giving the players like feel good experiences, like surprise and delight is what players typically want to have. So that refers to things like dopamine hits, whereas, oh, that was a nice experience, nice reward, I feel good. That is massively enhanced when it's a real world reward, in my opinion. So Bitcoin obviously is a has a direct value in terms of real world. Um, when you receive it or you get it for free, it's a very exciting thing. It means more than necessarily unlocking disposable hats for a character. Or it can mean more, I should say. So I think the things that we found is it really increased our retention, which is basically the key metric in mobile games or in games or in any product. How often do people come back? How often do they use it? I mean, we work with our partner who shared a stat that it increased our 30-day retention. So users who would come back after a month, like 1,000%.
Wow.
It was like a ridiculous number. Um, and it looks like a sales message when you see 1,000% increase, but it actually was. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One of them being that when we were doing a before and after look at adding Bitcoin to the game, so we started the game without Bitcoin, and then we added it 3 years later in terms of actually earning it. We didn't have much data in the first set because we couldn't market the game. One of the problems we had when we built the game in 2017 was that we couldn't market it.
Hmm.
Google, Facebook, all the main channels for advertising mobile games were a bit scared of Bitcoin, a bit timid around it, even more so then than now. So we kind of made the game and didn't do anything for 3 years. Like, it actually went off the store because we didn't update it. We didn't even realize it'd gone off. Like, that's how quiet it was.
Huh.
And then we did the update in April 2021 and everything changed. So in terms of how different is it now to like back then, um, there's some small intricacies that we've made to include Bitcoin earning, but it's not massively different, to be honest. The core mechanics, the core loops of the games are the same, just higher hits, higher highs, I guess.
Right. That's really interesting. So back in 2017, Google and Facebook were kind of trying to shut down this game, or kind of trying to limit the exposure to the game just because it had term Bitcoin in it? Because you weren't earning Bitcoin then, right?
Correct. So Apple and Google approved it onto the stores. That was fine. Like they could see it was a simulation game. There was nothing, it wasn't connected to a blockchain in any way. However, when we went to advertise the products, and I don't blame them for this either. I don't blame them for this now, just to be clear on my position. Like, there's a lot of scams in this space. They have a responsibility to protect consumers. So they had a scale issue in that obviously they have millions of advertisers. They can't vet everything individually. They put us in a cryptocurrency bucket, which was along with probably with scams. So even though the game was genuine, obviously everyone knows that now and seen it. Back then we were nobody. We were like 2 people, 3 people making a game. It had the word Bitcoin in it. It's easier for us if we just don't let that advertise on our platforms. And I understand that. Policies have improved across the whole space over the past 5 years, and they'll continue to do so, hopefully. So, so we were live on the stores. Apple and Google were totally cool with the game. They knew it was thematic only, but we couldn't promote it. The ads wouldn't run because it was kind of questionable content, if that makes sense. So yeah, we didn't really, we just kind of forgot about it.
Right. And so how has that relationship now with Apple and Google evolved now that you do actually have Bitcoin payments in the game? And now that we've had 5 years to kind of like parse some of the scams from the real stuff, and we kind of have a better understanding of like, not all of this needs to be bucketed in the exact same category. There are variations across a wide spectrum.
It's better for sure, but there's still a long way to go. Definitely, I'd say. So Apple, we were approved 5 years ago. We were approved now. Like the game is live on the App Store. In the game space, probably developers will nod their heads if they hear this to say that Apple aren't always the easiest to work with when you're trying to get your builds approved for multiple reasons. There is a lack of consistency on reviews most of the time. Google have been much more flexible, much easier. They're easier to talk to, for one. Like you can actually get on the phone and chat to them and get real actions once you're an established developer. So I think that's just a bit easier to work with Google on that side. That's why we focus more on that product, because we can get things done, turn around quicker. And on the advertising side, they have procedures for this now. So if you're a cryptocurrency product, you complete the cryptocurrency application form to say, we are not X, Y, and Z. We are, ABC. So much better. We've used all the UA channels now. So we're live on everything except TikTok, which is one of the big channels, but that's because they have internal challenges with actually making sure the users are the right age to show the ads to. So it's not an adverse effect to, I believe that's what it is anyway. It's not an adverse effect to the cryptocurrency in itself. It's making sure their users are safe to, same thing, they're just a bit behind, I think.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. Now, you mentioned Bitcoin increasing retention of your game, Bitcoin Miner, but you have a number of games, right? Can you talk about your portfolio of games at Fumb?
Of course, yeah. So we specialize in a genre of game called idle games, which basically mean numbers go up. A great example of this, you buy a lemonade stand. Over time, your lemonade stand, you sell lemonade, you earn money. Then you buy a garage or a car wash, and you grow your businesses. You're getting more revenue. Things are costing more as you grow. In terms of, that's the game, right? And most idle games at their heart are kind of this. The key thing around idle, though, which is really appealing to especially players on mobile, is if I play the game and I don't play for 3 days, I come back, I'll have loads to do because the game's been earning in the background. So I've got 3 days worth of earning that I can go, okay, cool. Well, now I can just go and buy the cinema and, run a bigger business. So it's quite cool for that. And that's why retention is high in this genre. The key thing about having high retention is, especially games that monetize with advertising, which is kind of half of our revenue, is you need eyeballs. You need people coming back, regular sessions to be able to monetize them. And like nearly all of our ad revenue comes from rewarded ads. So this is, I would like to watch this ad because you're going to give me something in return. So we're not a company that likes to bombard players with ads in any way. We call it like pull. You request the ad because you're going to get. something for it. So we specialize in those games, and that's like partly my background, part of my co-founder's background as well, and because we love playing them, and of course, because they're very accessible to a smaller studio. So our first game we made was one person that got 500,000 downloads and made no money, and then our second game made about 50K, and then our third game like broke the million, I think it was. So like it was the trajectory. We could access those games with that.
Very cool. So all the games are in the same kind of idle theme. I'd love to understand more about how you go through the process of designing a new game, especially because they all have this same, psychological theme through them. They're all kind of targeting the same kind of users, the same kind of mechanisms. How do you come up with new games, and what does that process look like for determining whether or not a new game is potentially going to succeed?
Cool, great question. So we're a small studio. We use that to our strengths, so we can be quite reactive. So we're like 18 people. I'm not sure if I mentioned. So just to benchmark the numbers, and what's quite cool about that is we can do things quite quickly, especially with the tools that are available today. You can get an Apple license for $99, and then you can push things out on the App Store. Unity is free. You can build, the asset store where you can buy artwork for like $3. It's very accessible. So that's really powerful. But how we look at market trends, like we look at Google Trends, things that are picking up, but primarily we just go with a lot with our gut. Like we've made 100 games since we started. I think we did 100 games last year, like prototypes, so very very quickly built. And the ones that have been successful are the ones that we just wanted to build. Like we went with our gut rather than following like, okay, well the market says this is what it needs, or we see this game doing well, let's take that and adapt it to be something different. So it's quite hard, to be honest, to pin it down. We're not as organized probably or as disciplined as some studios are, but in a hits-driven business, which is what this is, it's a bit like music. 99% are going to fail, or 99.9% of games will fail. We like to kind of lean on our experience to go, okay, well, we think this is what we are enjoying this, so someone else is going to.
Right.
And how we measure success, that's a really good question. Is the slight it's a blessing and a curse that there are like 500 million apps in the App Store or whatever it is, because it's just obviously increased competition. There's so many, you have to be able to market the game, because there's no, if you 10 years ago, if you put an app in the App Store, there weren't many, you'd get loads of downloads. Today you do it, you'll get zero. Like no one will pick it up unless you get incredibly lucky, or it's incredibly good and it changes people's lives. Like that's the reality. So what we have to do now is be able to find a way to grow the user base. Obviously making a great game is the way to do that, but it's not, a lot of great games die because they can't get users. So what we do is we build a prototype and we run the ads for that prototype. And this is very common in the mobile game space. This is kind of pretty much how everyone does it. I'm not like revealing anything special here, but we just see what it would cost to acquire a user. And what we do is one kind of level further as well, is like, what is the K factor of that? So if I want Kevin to play Bitcoin Miner, I'm willing to pay $1 for him to install it to Facebook or Google or whoever. How many people does Kevin tell? Because then $1, I've got 5 installs, which actually breaks even, which means I can, those aren't the right numbers, but you get the idea. So that's pretty much how we test concepts. Is is it possible to scale it? Especially as half our revenue is advertising. It's all about eyeballs. It's all about people looking at the screens, looking at the ads. So that's a big factor for it.
Right. And then now when you have a successful game like Bitcoin Miner, I believe you guys passed 1 million downloads, right? This is like a big time mobile game.
Wow. So in mobile, it's tiny, to be honest.
Really?
Mobile games, like Subway Surfers has 3 billion downloads, I think. Like,
Okay.
great. Like numbers in mobile games are crazy.
Huh.
So 10 million is what Bitcoin. Sorry, we've gone through 10 million as a studio.
Wow.
Bitcoin Miner has gone through 1 million like a couple of 2 months ago. But the irony is, like, it's actually the biggest Web3 mobile game because in terms of like, a game that's connected to the blockchain, because it is still quite a niche space we're in, like especially in a bear market, it seems to have got niche in terms of the actual audience size. So it's quite funny when the press hit that Bitcoin might have gone for 1 million downloads, and there's loads of like pats on the back of like, well done. In mobile game space, like some of my friends around the studios are like, oh, that's cute.
Yeah.
But in the blockchain space, it's like, wow, like 1 million users, that's amazing. So yeah, it's kind of a funny one.
Right. So now you've had this one that is succeeding in the blockchain space and like could potentially succeed in the mainstream space, but you have this another 99 games that you guys have produced. Is there any ability to take the success of the first game and kind of like cross pollinate and try and kind of use that to drive more people to the other games?
So it's possible, like it can definitely be done, but the reality of what we've got is our best product is Bitcoin Miner. Like if we look at like revenue per user, for example, Bitcoin Miner like blows everything else out the water, really. So there's no real incentive for us to take a user from there and put them elsewhere in terms of like sustaining the business, because it would net out a loss unless they were going to leave the game, but we just don't know that. So but one of the things that kind of did trigger from what you said is can we replicate Bitcoin Miner with the other games? So rather than take the users from it, actually can we just build a bigger game and then go the other way? And that's something we've heavily invested in this year. So we have got a game coming, which is it's very cool. It's themed in space, so it's very different to like mining in the Earth, but it is mining in space, and we're very excited about that one, which will have very similar mechanics to Bitcoin Miner, just kind of enhanced and a lot more investment gone into it.
Cool. So this game will also allow you to earn Bitcoin as well?
Correct. Yes.
Very cool. And what's the rationale there between deciding you built 100 games, Bitcoin Miner has Bitcoin payments built in over the Lightning Network. Why not the other 99? Or what's the rationale for like when you should integrate Bitcoin payments? Like how do you think about making that decision?
So we think about it very much from a player perspective. So like, does it make sense? Obviously, it's nice to earn Bitcoin as you play a game, like, especially for us who are in the space, or most of your listeners are like, yeah, cool, I'll take free Bitcoin. Like, why not? Never say no, right? But what we found is in order to scale the game, Bitcoin is can be Marmite. That's the expression. Sorry, in the UK, it's like some people love it, some people hate it. So, and I won't like ruin any relationships I've got, but we did a big marketing push for Bitcoin Miner on a certain platform, and the volume, so the installs from this platform went up. So we were paying to advertise the game, and the installs came from this platform went up, but the reviews went down, and people were downloading the game to give it 1 stars to say I don't like Bitcoin, and it completely like nuked our month in terms of like our KPIs for optimizing the store. So like it's a really good attraction for users like us who are like really invested and interested in Bitcoin and want to play around with it and experience it. But there's still a challenge there of it's a niche audience relative to the what's 3 billion, was it 4 billion mobile smartphones in the world. Like you look at the audience that are interested in playing Bitcoin games, like versus that, it's still tiny. So yeah, so that's like that is one of the challenges. Is what we're trying to do with the next game is not all about Bitcoin. It's an element of the game. It's a very important part of the game, but we're not using it on all our marketing like this game's about Bitcoin, like Bitcoin Miner was. I think we had to have Bitcoin Miner to be able to do what we're doing next, because it proved the model works and it proves these games are very viable because of the Lightning Network. But in order to go mainstream, like we need to like break out from like a purely Bitcoin thematic. Like that's my opinion, at least. That's what we're testing.
Right. So when you look at the kind of the million plus people that have downloaded Bitcoin Miner, What do you think about what are the lessons you've learned about the demographics of those users? I know you got those reviews from folks who didn't like Bitcoin and just kind of, downloaded it just to say they didn't like it. But the users that keep coming back, are these new to Bitcoin? Are these users existing Bitcoiners that just want some extra sats? What is that mix like for you guys?
It's a really good question, and it's really hard to measure for us. I know, obviously, the Thunder guys really well, the mobile studio, and I did see one of their data pieces, which like their numbers were like 80% of players are new to Bitcoin for that game. I'd be very surprised if it wasn't the same for us, but I don't know for sure, to be honest. Um, we've people email in to us, people write reviews like, oh, this game got my mum into Bitcoin, like, it's very accessible. And that for us, well, that I think was why Bitcoin Miner has been successful, is because we try to reduce friction like as much as possible. And that was the challenge of this game from integrating Bitcoin from the start. So every click halves the funnel, or every tap halves the funnel. I really believe in that expression. So we had to have as little requirement as possible of the user to do boring tapping to get the Bitcoin earned. And that's where we partnered with Zebedee to do that, which was really, really good for us. So in terms of like our player user base, I think around 60% are in tier 1 markets. So with tier 1, we class as US, Canada, UK, and Germany and Australia. So the majority are actually based in markets that are much more helpful for us as a business, because advertisers are willing to pay more for ads in those spaces. And it also differentiates us quite a lot from other Web3 games, where typically their daily active users are in kind of Philippines or Indonesia, Brazil. We do have that as like in the top 10 of audiences, but no, I don't know of another Web3 game that has US as its number one, which is by far our predominant number of traffic. And I'll tell you why it's so important that is a fact, is that I looked at this the other day. If you add all of our revenue from all the top 10 countries, the US is number one, so take that out. If you add all those together, they're a third of what the US is. So it's very important
Yeah.
for us. And I think that's quite rare in this, at least from what I've seen from other users other studios that do share their daily active user numbers.
Right. Now, you guys integrated Bitcoin into Bitcoin Miner, I think you said in 2021, which was the kind of like peak of or maybe not the peak, but I was seeing a lot about, play to earn Web3 games. I think Axie Infinity was one. There's a couple others. Basically, like, creating some new token and allowing you to earn these tokens. What was your reason for using Bitcoin payments rather than spinning up a new token and kind of creating some kind of Web3 game, some NFT game, some other mechanism where you could have had an easier path maybe in the moment to earning more money, but maybe over the long run maybe not. What was the rationale for Bitcoin versus kind of crypto, I'll say?
Great question. I love that you asked this. So we do, like, a lot of studios see this, but we do come from a very player first focus. Like, does it make sense for the player? Why would the player care? Like is it good for them? I was playing the games that you mentioned and other games that when it was a bull run, it's like, this is incredible. Like, I would go for a walk for 20 minutes a day and earn $500. Like, genuinely, I was like, this is incredible. Like, what? It's magic. And obviously everything fell over. But even when we were doing that, well, there's a couple of reasons why we just never ever consider doing a token. Is it doesn't make sense to the player. Like, the world doesn't need another token. Like, I was in the shitcoin runs of like 2017. Like, that was like fun and interesting, and lost a load of money. But it's like, this is just, what is this?
Yeah.
Like, what does it mean? What does it do? And my co-founder is very crypto careful, I'd say. Crypto careful. I'm crypto curious. He's curious but very careful. And he pushed the agenda of like, it doesn't make sense. Like, why would we do it? We don't understand how to do it. And also, then it's token economics and all these kind of things that we're not experienced at and we don't know. And it just like, why would the player want it? Why, like, what value does it add other than, oh, we can rug pull and try and make more money? Like, that's not what we're about. So we knew we were never going to do a token, and we never will. Like, I don't see any benefit of making your own token for a game. Why would a player want it? Bitcoin, on the other hand, oh, that makes total sense. Like, it's nice to have. It's a valued asset already. It's not manipulativable. You can't manipulate it. Well, definitely, like, I can't, or like normal people can't. Whereas on a token, anything can happen. So we just didn't want to get. We saw the trend of like everyone doing the gold rush to these, making these tokens, getting all their players excited by it. Boom, bust, players burnt, see you later, company's gone, but the founders made loads. Fumb was like 5 years old at that point. Even if it was 5 days old, I wouldn't want to do that. It's not what I'm interested in. Not to say that every gaming token is like that, but I think no one's experienced enough to be able to sustain one. Like, I haven't seen it happen. I could be totally wrong about this, and it could be like the next best thing that players do actually want. But in order to go mainstream with this, I didn't see it as realistic. Bitcoin Lightning, however, as I said, totally different. Like, accessible, stable, relatively, and like, it's got the ecosystem of people building on it is bigger. Obviously, Bitcoin is the poster child. It's the golden one that everybody really wants, if we're honest. That's my view. So we're quite passionate about this because, like, I'm not a huge fan of like games spinning up tokens, if I'm honest. For those reasons.
That's fair. And now, have you noticed a change in the last 2 years? Because now you've had a couple of years to see what the reaction of your users is going to be to actual Bitcoin in your games. Have you seen users, changing their views on Bitcoin for better or for worse over the last couple of years? And especially as the price of Bitcoin has changed. I guess depending on when you did it in 2021, you may have seen a price rise and then a subsequent price fall in the last year or two. What has people's sentiment been like over the course of the last 2 years in response to Bitcoin prices?
It's a very good question, and I often joke that if you want to know when a bear market's coming, ask me, because every time we do a big update to Bitcoin Miner, we launched it and that was the peak, and then bear market. We did the Bitcoin Miner Earn Real Bitcoin update in 2021. It was early 2021, so it's already kind of going down. So we've never had the game in a bull run. We don't know what will happen. The funny thing about this is it could actually be worse for us than it is now. For that, for example, we have a new sink in the game, right? So what I mean by sink is money comes out of it. So if Bitcoin prices are rising, we pay everyone pretty much, we pay everyone in the world equally, but we pretty much pay everyone like a fixed price of Satoshis. Players who max the game and figure out how to max it and withdraw every day, like, that cost just increases or decreases based on the price of Bitcoin, right, to us. So it's going to be a really interesting one when that happens. We may need to change the game to to facilitate, to keep it profitable or sustainable. So that's really interesting. So we didn't necessarily see a sentiment change. What I was expecting to happen was the game would get less and less popular as the bear got bigger and bigger, as the markets went down. But the inverse happened. I don't think it's a direct correlation of people are more interested to play when there's a bear market. I think it was just the game was growing. It was like spreading organically, which was cool. But there's expression in Bitcoin Lightning games like stack your sats, right? You've seen this, and even in non-gaming in apps as well. I think that's the core. Is like, people know Bitcoin price is going to go up again. Like, they're just having fun, but storing those for when that happens again, and then they could have more, I guess, more and more financial incentives. So no huge shifts. Right. Nothing that we noticed anyway.
I hope you're enjoying the show so far. Just a quick message from our sponsor, Voltage. Voltage empowers engineers to integrate Bitcoin and Lightning Network payments into their business stack with an enterprise-grade experience. The team at Voltage is building the complete toolset so that you can do more than simply spin up nodes, but also understand and interpret your node's data. Their new product, Surge, gives engineers the capability to quickly solve problems and optimize operations. With node insights and visibility through time series data, you get dynamic and complex insights never available before. You can get complete control with insanely fast onboarding, advanced client-side encryption, and zero management infrastructure, making backups, networking, and upgrades simple. Get a free 7-day trial today at voltage.cloud. I want to talk about the, Bitcoinization of games and how far this idea can extend. What you've integrated into Bitcoin Miner, considering integrating into a new game, the space themed game. Is every game going to be a Bitcoin game? Like how far does Bitcoin's reach extend in the gaming industry? And can we get to a point where all these in-game currencies and little kind of like, proprietary tokens are converted into Bitcoin and people are actually earning sats no matter what game they play?
It's a really interesting one for me because despite having one of the biggest Bitcoin game for sure, is what does success look like for Bitcoin games? Like, I think that's kind of the question you're kind of getting at. Every game doesn't need Bitcoin. Like, every game doesn't need real world rewards, I would say. And one of the challenges for me of like the Web3 gaming space is, I tweeted this out the other day, like, if you were playing a game and really enjoying it, and someone came along and said, that sword that you just unlocked is worth £1,000 to you right now, $1,000. Your psychology changes to playing the game, right? There's now a cost involved, or a sunken cost, or it depends on how you view on it, that changes your perspective of how to play or why you should play. And I don't think every game benefits from having that. I think very early days in the start of play to earn games, I said people who play games to earn money aren't gamers; they're speculators. And nothing against them, but that's my view. It's like, and I've been that when I was doing the walking game. Like, I didn't enjoy the game. I like earning a lot of money by going for a walk, and it did make me do more exercise, which is cool. But it was for money. Like, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. So people who play games like purely for entertainment, and there's billions of us, like, that's for a different use case, right? So I'm very much of it's cool and it's good, and I think it's helpful, but I don't think it should ever be the crux of why people play games. I think that's a very unhealthy step if that's what it becomes, because otherwise, what is entertainment then? Like, it changes a lot more in my head. So, but I think we've only scratched the surface of where this can go for sure. Like, Bitcoin Miner, only 33% of people withdraw. So most players come to play the game because they like the game. And that for me is a good thing. That's like, I'm here for the fun. Oh, but hey, I'll have the cheeky reward. That's nice. And that increases our retention, increases our loyalty to the company, to the fan base. So that's my take on it. And I think I still think it's a very healthy thing if there's this currently niche kind of vertical slice of a game genre grows bigger. I think there's room for it to grow much, much more, which is obviously why we're building on it. But it's cool to coexist with, the Lasts of Us of the world, and the Skyrims, and every other kind of big game that survives on its just pure entertainment.
Right. So I guess, would it be fair to say then that, there's always going to be a demand for fun without anything at stake, and that, by introducing Bitcoin, it can sometimes it can replace the fun without any strings attached with, now you're all of a sudden as you said, speculator, or like you're trying to earn a profit. You're almost a business at that point. You're almost like, I'm working for money. It's a job now. It's not that fun with no strings attached that it was before.
Yeah, exactly. And I think because our rewards are so small, like when we call it reward. I call it rewarded play, because play to earn just reminds me of the Ponzi. So, but when play to earn was blowing up, we were very much going the other way of like, you won't earn very much in this game. Like, we're like, don't quit your job to play this, please. Like,
Right.
it's not healthy. Like, players earn cents a day; they don't earn like dollars a day. So, um, that is much healthier because then we just know it's not about the money. Even though most of our users from the US, like, if they can only cash out 20 cents a day max, like that's cool because it means more in Philippines and Indonesia, but it's still not like, still can't quit jobs over it. So yeah, that's I think another thing that we've kind of been quite like. It sounds counterintuitive to say like, yes, you can earn money, but not a lot. Like we're very clear about that. As trying to be as much as possible, because we want to set the right expectations as well. Like we don't really want players who are just in it to withdraw back Bitcoin, because there's not really any value to us then in terms of our business. So it's kind of a funny situation to be in.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. I've heard a few people say that, they want to kind of almost limit the exposure, especially when it's an app that's allowing people to earn Bitcoin. They sometimes try and cap this off, and they say, okay, listen, you're going to be able to earn, but we don't want you spending 24/7 trying to earn here, because this is not going to be the replacement for your full-time job. And, setting expectations I think is important. Um, I want to talk about kind of the reverse of this conversation, which is gaming the right mechanism to onboard new Bitcoiners? So, we have in Bitcoin, there's a lot of discussion about how do we get new Bitcoiners. Some say we need to have people earning Bitcoin. Some say we need more education. Some say we need, merchants accepting Bitcoin. Some say we need more gamers using it. What is your view on the importance of games in creating new Bitcoiners?
Uh, I think it. I think it probably is the biggest growth like mechanic we have to increasing the users of Bitcoin. If we just look at the size of like the amount of gamers in the world, like it is like over 3 billion. So that's big. Also, there's like it's so frictionless. Like games are so accessible. You know, I don't know what age the average age of someone getting a smartphone is now, but it's young. So like people can access the app stores very very easily, um, and also if we look at popular services, the way they grow is through gamification, right? So
Mm-hmm.
we looked at the trip advisors where complete these 3 rewards, you'll get your badge. We looked at Google do that on Google reviews. Gamification is a way for even non-game products to grow. So it's the way to scale. I do believe that. um, Naturally it won't be the be all and end all. Like not everyone is a gamer in the world, of course, but the pandemic accelerated the size of the pool for sure, and a lot of those people who joined gaming did stick around during that period. So it's I maybe I'm very very biased being running a game studio, but I think it is probably Bitcoin's most effective growth tool that it has, without like the killer app, which is obviously still hopefully in production right now. um, and it's so transferable, right, in terms of like Bitcoin Lightning, using it across multiple products. Like even if from a year ago to where we are today, being able to work with it is developing so quickly and moving so fast and doing things with it that are very exciting. And we've got some plans coming up that be well, if the platforms move the way I think and hope they will move, then it would be very very interesting for Bitcoin Lightning going forward.
Right. So you kind of view this as a onboarding mechanism for creating new Bitcoiners, then? Is that fair to say?
Yeah, for sure. Like Thunderstat, 80% of their players are new to Bitcoin. Like people write in email review us saying like, "Oh, I didn't know how to get Bitcoin until this. It's very usable. Thanks for making it accessible." So that I, like obviously we've got 1 million players. If 700,000 of them are new to Bitcoin, like, and this game is, like I said, in the drop in the ocean of mobile games, it's pretty cool to see how big it could go.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's still, 700,000 new Bitcoiners. That is material to the size of the Bitcoin pool right now. Like I don't know the number of Bitcoiners globally. It's hard to really reason about like an accurate number, but maybe 100 million, 100, 200 million. And so like adding another million there is like, that's a percentage point, right? Like that's a tick up. And, you know, a few dozen people like that. And you're all of a sudden having 20, 30% growth in the number of Bitcoiners.
Exactly. And when I think roughly a year ago, maybe you shared a visual, which is like the number of Bitcoin Lightning payments when you tweeted that out. And I looked at our numbers, I was like, oh, wow, we're like double-digit percentage of that. That's so cool. Like, and it just showed, oh, now I don't think we are. Like, I've seen the graphs going up, but it's like, oh, this is, we're contributing to something very cool here, which I kind of believe in and have a lot of time for. So also the other thing that I think is really, I'd love your thoughts on actually. I feel like Bitcoin Miner, even though it's just purely fun, like a game really, is actually a real use case of blockchain. So what I mean by that is our model doesn't work without Bitcoin Lightning. And by that, I mean, like basically no fees at all, instant payments and micro numbers. Any of like PayPal, the business wouldn't be sustainable. The fees on that wouldn't work. Any other payment provide I know of, the economy breaks, the model breaks. So it's quite one of the things that people have always criticized. Well, from my take was like on cryptocurrency, on blockchain, is like loads of use cases, but where's the real world ones that actually prove that it works? Like this is actually like, look, this isn't possible without Bitcoin Lightning, without blockchain. And I think that is quite a cool thing, because that is what people have been kind of asking for. Don't get me wrong, it's not changing the world, like this is a game, but it's proof that there's value to the non-believers, if you like, or the non-Bitcoin crowd that kind of just critique it.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's true. There's I think some of the best use cases for Bitcoin and for Lightning is just stuff that cannot be done in any other way. And we're starting to see a few of those pop up. And the more of those that emerge, I think that the case for Bitcoin's value becomes just so obvious. And like, it's almost like undeniable at a certain point where you go, okay, here's 100 different things that none of them can be done on fiat payment rails. Like you just can't process transactions in that small of a size. You can't do it as fast. There's all sorts of, and because it's money, and money can plug into basically any use case of any app, of any developer. Like there's so many different verticals in which you could kind of like plug in this new money and spin up a new business that could never have existed before. And so, I get really excited about that kind of stuff. And I also think even in gaming, I start to look like, I'm not a gamer by any means, but I'm watching from the sidelines and I'm seeing how some of the mechanics work. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that most of the mobile Bitcoin games that allow you to earn sats are effectively going like, okay, we're going to show you an ad. We're going to take a portion of the ad revenue for ourselves, and we're going to send a portion of it back to users. Is that roughly correct for how that mechanism works?
Yeah, indirectly, I think that's what most of the models are like for the other Bitcoin games. I see those are the ones that are like 100% or near ad funded,
right?
As in like ad revenue driven.
Yeah.
So they're all revenue shares, really. That's kind of how they work. Because the company makes money, then it buys Bitcoin and sends it back to the players. That's the model. I guess the reason why ours is slightly different is because we monetize through in-app purchase and ads. So we take the in-app purchase revenue as well, which is often stronger than the ad revenue. So we don't have to show so many ads, which obviously is nicer for the players. And typically, like if you have a game that monetizes an in-app purchase, the payouts can be higher because you make more money from in-app purchase.
Right.
But this leads on to something really exciting, which I think is coming. I hope is coming, which I haven't really talked about too much, is the problem with, well, it's not a problem. The reality right now of in-app purchase payments is 30% or 15% to up to $1 million and 30% over goes to Apple and Google, which is, is what it is. There's been lots of talk about that number, but that's the current reality. It would be interesting how Bitcoin Lightning can help to reduce that problem. So, for example, if it can operate as the as the payment rails rather than going through like Apple's systems, then which I think is coming. Like side loading is becoming a thing. It's going to be interesting what happens over the end of by the end of the year. Then Bitcoin Lightning could like that. I'd love to put that in the game. Like purchase this purchase through Bitcoin Lightning payment methods. Use your sats that you've earned if you want to purchase something in the game. Like there's loads of benefits for it. Also, the unbanked in emerging markets could pay. They could buy things at a fraction of a cent, or or much lower value than having to use the rigid in-app purchase model of like 99 cents is the lowest thing you could buy. Nothing like it opens up a whole new interesting economy to play around with, which should benefit the consumer and the developers. Obviously, at the cost of Apple and Google, but we'll see.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I even think of other ways in which money could be injected into games is like having game players putting money in on their own accounts and playing with each other. I mean, this is like I guess it's just for a subset of games that are like competitive or person versus person games. Like maybe you and I are in a battle in a game, and I say, I'm gonna put 100 sats into my account, and I'm gonna get special body armor or something, and you're gonna put 100 sats, and you're gonna buy a sword with it, and whichever one of us wins, we get the 200 sats. So I take your sats or you take my sats, and like these kind of interactions, I think with money in a game I haven't ever seen this being deployed, and I think there's a lot of green pasture and opportunities to innovate on the ways in which money is used by players. And I know maybe some of this gets into you're almost again building a business, or you're seeking profit if you're now funding yourself, if you're paying money to hopefully take someone else's money in the game, like you're building a business at that point, I guess. So maybe it's not the thing that all gamers will embrace and enjoy, but I just think there's a lot of opportunities for money to move in different ways throughout games and all sorts of apps.
So my view on like it's almost like staking. I forget the terminology for it because I'm not that clued up on this space. But it is a big part of gaming in terms of revenue. Like there are companies that 1v1 PvP. Like I'm going to put some cash in, you want to put cash in, boom, takes the winners. It's very, very interesting. I think that will be a use case for this for sure. It's not necessarily a route we're pursuing purely because we're probably not big enough to be able to handle something like that. For one, like the servers, the anti-cheat prevention, all that stuff. Because that's one thing we have learned during this game, Bitcoin Miner, is if you give away Bitcoin, hackers will come, and they come big. So there's lots to learn. That we spent a lot of our year basically trying to optimize that or reduce that. So yeah, like once you go social with this, it kind of becomes a bigger beast as well. So like server side multiplayer and all those kind of things, it becomes a bit daunting. And it is a different mindset. I think I would play that game. Don't be wrong, Kevin. I would have a little battle with you for 100 sats. But I don't know how mainstream it is, if I'm honest. Yeah. Like, do you know what I mean? I think that's like the next like step, which is cool to think about and work towards. But yeah, we're not there yet, at least. But I'm sure companies are working on this.
Yeah. Okay. I want to talk a bit about Lightning payments specifically, and you just touched on the anti-cheat measures and things that you have to do to prevent people from gaming the game when you're giving away Bitcoin. Can you talk to me about the challenges there? Because this is something I've heard from a lot of Lightning apps, that as soon as they integrate, now we're giving away Bitcoin, you really have to think carefully about who might be using this, and people will do some crazy things for very little money. It's not like, again, like you said, you're not giving away fortunes to people. You're just giving away small amounts, but it's still, it's still something that's top of mind for a lot of Lightning apps, I think.
Yeah, the two biggest learnings, I would say, anyone who's building on this right now and is using Bitcoin Lightning to give rewards, is always start small with the rewards. Like, one of the things we were worried about is, it's not enough. People aren't going to be bothered by it because it's That's not true. Like people just like receiving free Bitcoin, whether it's 100 sats or 1 or 10, like it still means something to people. So that's like a really good learning. Also, the benefit of that is number two is if you get hacked, you won't be as hurt, because it will happen. People will hack what you're doing. Especially, well, your listeners may be even more sophisticated than we were when we came into it. We were just game developers, right? We didn't have any real blockchain experience. But the third thing is keep your active wallet, the main wallet that you use to transfer the satoshis out of. Like, so I top it up every day. Like, I don't just put loads of Bitcoin in there and go, okay, I'll top it up once a month, because on the off chance that we get hacked, all that's gone. It sounds really obvious, but it could be just one of those things you forget about. Like, so little payments, and you can set that up to automate now. We're using a partner that helps us do that. So like it just literally every day, it also sends the sats into the account, so it doesn't all just get withdrawn. Those are the three learnings I would say. Start small. You can always increase it. Like that's kind of what we did. And yeah, just don't keep the wallet too heavy. So obviously I can't go too much into security because our Discord's like always like, oh, I found this exploit, and we have this approach of like we reward our hackers like a bounty like of satoshis, like well done, you found this, good work, and because you shared it with us, boom, here's Bitcoin. So like keep your friends close, put your hackers closer is true for this. If you see someone abusing it, like just try and get answers, get content from them. They're half of the time we found in our Discord is like they're just happy to show off that they found it. It's like karma points, internet points. I was able to exploit it. Here's how I did it. And we praise them for it. But in terms of security, how we managed it is lots of game checks. So there you can play this game and earn an impossible amount by doing within an impossible amount of time. So if you open the game and you've earned 1,000,000 sats in like 2 minutes, obviously that's something wrong there. Like there's a hack going on. Lots of little intricacies like that. That's one of, I don't know how many we have now, to be honest, because we have them all the time. The challenge is you can't just always look at a player's data, because we've had like a very small select of players who have played it far too much. They're the kind of the other ones out, who are always addicted to certain games or love games so much that they'll play it for like 4 hours straight. And our game's designed to be played like 3 minutes every couple of hours. You drop in, boom, and go again. So to see like a session like that's incredibly long, with all these button taps and all these things, it's like it looks like it could be a bot, but sometimes it's not. So we're very like err on the side of the player and be like, okay, we're not confident this is a hacker or a bot, so we're gonna let this go. And because we don't pay out $100 a day or more, we can afford to do that and not offend and upset people who are just actually, because at the end of the day, they are like super users. They're the ones who love it. So we don't want to, we don't want to ban those people. But yeah, we typically find there are patterns to these things, and sometimes they're not even hidden.
Right. So, I mean, this introduces an interesting question, though, because I think a lot more, there's already Lightning app developers that are facing this issue of how do I prevent bots from gaming this system. This will become a much bigger issue as more Lightning apps are developed and as more bots are developed. And so, it introduces this question that is at the front and center of, I know it's at the front and center of social media today. This is something that Elon at Twitter talks a lot about how to verify someone is a human. And with all these Lightning apps, we're not doing like really strict KYC, show us your driver's license to play a video game. It's like you don't actually have that mechanism to, enforce, what you otherwise would have done to verify someone's a human at a bank, or you don't want people paying $8 a month to, play your game. So where do you see this kind of like, how do you see a future where we can figure out whether or not someone's a human and whether they should be rewarded? I've seen solutions proposed on the Bitcoiner side, things like web of trusts. On the kind of like fiat side, it's like KYC.
Yep.
Is there something maybe in the middle is like, you're just going to do your best and just try and like squash bots when you see them. What does that solution look like long term?
Oh, I'd love to know. I want to ask you. Or someone listening might be able to. If you do know, do tell me. So I don't think there's a silver bullet for this. I think there's always, if you give away Bitcoin, there's always going to be a percentage of users who will exploit it, because there's different levels of exploitation, right? There's some people who've just figured out a break in the game or the product, right? So one of the when we launched the game, we had an issue where users could just mass spam earning, we didn't think about it. That was our fault. That was a product design error, based on the mechanics of the model we have. Then we've got users who will download the APK, so the install, the build, and open it up, change numbers, put it back on the device, and try and withdraw. That's a hacker. And then we have people who don't even have a phone, just go on their PC and go through APIs to get to Bitcoin Lightning Network, and the way we do it, at least. So there's multiple ways of doing it, and each one needs its own kind of unique solution. Obviously, the product one is all internal. Well, they're all internal, but the product one can be handled by the developers who make the game. The exploiters also can be partly responsible for, the developers internally can partly handle the exploiters and the hackers who change the APK. And then also the actual rails that we use can be improved over time as well. I think the easiest solution, which we haven't done, because it's not been I think we're going to roll it out soon, because it's probably going to be more important. One thing you could do is require KYC for the maximum earning. Now it splits the crowd a little bit, this, because Bitcoin is semi-anonymous, right? You don't really want people to know who you are against your wallet. So I really am sensitive to that, and I understand that. But at the moment, based on the tools available to developers, there's nothing that I know, as like I said, that can help solve the problem yet. In terms of even to 90% consistency. So one of the models that we've kicked around internally is, okay, you can earn 100 sats a day if you are not KYC'd, but if you do KYC, then you can earn up to 500 a day. So that won't please everyone. We know that. And it's not really the ideal solution. We know that. But if it's the difference in your products surviving or not, I think that can help. That's one of the suggestions that I would throw into the ring.
Yeah. It feels like identity is it's something that I think among Bitcoiners sometimes gets second priority. We spend so much time focusing on the money and maybe not enough time. I think there are a few people who are seriously focused on identity in the Bitcoin community, and I appreciate that. But I think it's still an unsolved problem to some degree. We don't have a perfect set of tools today to verify, that yes, this person is a well-intentioned human who's wanting to use my app, and it's not a bot farm. So we'll see how that develops. It'll be interesting. But more on Lightning payments. I'd love to understand more about the experience your users have with making Lightning payments. Like, again, if 70-80% of your users are new Bitcoiners, I would love to kind of explore, what is their experience like? How are they, the ones who withdraw? You said only about 33% withdraw. How are they, going through this process of learning what Lightning is? Are there any, common issues or misconceptions or troubles they run into along the way?
Yes, there are. So I explain our user journey, and then I think audience will understand. Users download the game, Bitcoin Miner, from the App Store. They play the game, they earn some Bitcoin very quickly, even if it's only one Satoshi. Then we say, withdraw your Satoshi, tap withdraw. Then we say, okay, go and download a secondary app, which is your wallet, effectively, which is called Zebedee, which is the partner that we use, to withdraw that Bitcoin into that wallet. So then they have to go through that setup. So there's too many clicks in there for me, even still, right? It's like, okay, this app and then another app. It's still not ideal, but it's still a lot better than anything else we've seen so far. So then the users withdraw the Bitcoin into that wallet if they choose to at that point. If not, it's like living in the game for them still. They can just rack it up and then withdraw it whenever. And then once they take it into Zebedee, they can use it for turning it into, well, take it to an exchange, for example. I think Bitstamp is the one supported in the US. They can buy Amazon gift cards. They can send it to their friends. They can come into our Discord and tip players. Like, that's quite a cool feature that we're using at the moment, which is basically you like make it rain, and then you say I want to give 100 sats to 100 people, or 10 sats to 10 people, and it goes and just pay everyone in Discord. Very cool. Great for the community. We do it quite a lot. So that's the flow. The challenges we've had is, Zebedee have done amazing. They kind of created this space to a degree, at least the size of it. They've helped a lot, but a lot of people still don't know what that is. Like, people aren't familiar with the app, right, or the terms, Zebedee. So it's kind of, what's this? And I think that's why it's only 33% that withdraw, because I think sometimes we lose some people there. We're looking to solve this with like other solutions as well that are maybe a bit more known, with Zebedee's help as well, which is very cool of them. And then the other thing we have is, players not necessarily realizing that it's on the Bitcoin Lightning Network, not on Bitcoin. For example, the number one critique we get really is, how do I earn more money? I want more. That's definitely up there. But the other one is, why can't I just cash this out to Coinbase? And that's like the biggest thing we've got. So like, obviously the reason is because Coinbase doesn't support Bitcoin Lightning yet, so you can't just go, don't connect it in. People think it's their Bitcoin wallet, not their Bitcoin Lightning wallet. So that's a learning curve we still have to go through and educate people on. So we explain that a lot to players, and it's not, I'm a player. I don't read tutorials. I don't read instructions. We obviously explain it in the game, but no one reads. So
takes time. Yeah. But you have Cash App now, and you have Cash App in the UK, I believe, right?
So we don't support Cash App yet, but that is one we're looking to support. That's like Bitcoin Lightning for Cash App is only live in the US.
Oh, okay.
So it won't solve any problems outside of the US yet. But I imagine that's something that they'll hopefully look to roll out a bit more globally as well. And obviously, then the friction becomes hopefully a lot smaller. Mm-hmm. Where do you want to withdraw? Zebedee or Cash App? Cash App, bang, dunk, there you go. That's hopefully what the user journey will be then. And then I imagine that 33% will get bigger.
Right. And so in general, though, are you finding that, in the journey of earning sats, withdrawing, and then doing stuff with those sats, are your users finding those things to do? Like you mentioned, like topping up their phone, using Bitrefill, sending sats back to the Discord. Like, are they really understanding that these sats can now be used in all these different ways and actually pursuing those?
That's a great question. I don't have visibility on any of that, unfortunately, because once the users withdraw, we don't even really track what they do. They can't do anything in our app anyway other than withdraw it anyway. So what they do with it, I believe most people are stacking. That's kind of what I think is not actually being used directly for much else yet. But yeah, unfortunately, it's part of the problem of identity as well. Like, we don't want to track what people necessarily do with it. I mean, Zebedee will have more insight than me on that, because they can actually do things with it in their app. Whereas on our side, like, one of the things I'm excited about is if we can accept Satoshis as a payment, and we can, we have one of our popular approaches is remove the ads from the game. Like, if they could earn and then pay to remove the ads, and then that's cool for us, that's cool for them. I like that model. So hopefully next year we'll have some of that live, but at the moment that is restricted by the platforms. So Apple and Google wouldn't allow that. So that's something that we're hoping kind of relaxes a bit over time.
Very cool. And then any advice for, we have a lot of builders on this show listening in, anyone who's considering integrating Lightning into their product or building a new app with Lightning, any advice based on your last 2 years of having this Lightning integration and all the issues that you have worked through in the last couple of years?
The advice I would give is, so it's not specific to Bitcoin Lightning initially, but like feel free to ask people for help. Like one of the things that's amazing about this community, and it's going to be even better in the Bitcoin Lightning community, is like people like helping each other. Like we're building something cool. A lot of people believe we're building the future of like payment rails and exciting tech. So I think people are very open to helping and like having conversations like this. So that's one of the lessons I got very early, is don't be afraid to ask people for help. Because if they can't help you, they probably know someone who can as well, and it comes back around, right? If you help people. So that's the first thing. The second thing is now I imagine most of your audience or listeners are much more advanced than I am and was and am at Bitcoin Lightning and the technology of it all and how it works. But I would definitely have someone, a partner or someone internally who can execute on the technology. Like, fortunately, we chose like a very good partner for us. Like, if we wanted to do what we've done today without them, we'd have massively struggled, and we probably wouldn't have done it because we wouldn't have known how to start. So very, maybe very obvious, but talk to someone who can help specifically on this, whether it's a company like Zebedee or whether it's a partner or individual that knows this really well. And I think it depends on what kind of person or company that is listening. I'm more of a marketing kind of like product person, not technical at all. So this was super intimidating to me 2 years ago. Like really exciting, but that was my hurdle. So those are the two things I would say, is like ask for help, like have conversations. It's a very very helpful network, and yeah, don't be afraid to get someone who knows what they're talking about involved.
Makes sense. Okay, let's finish this off with the lightning round. I do this at the end of every show. It is a few rapid fire questions for you. You ready?
Okay. Ready.
I hope you're enjoying the show so far. Just a quick message from our sponsor, Stackwork. Stackwork is a lightning powered platform for generating high quality transcripts of all your audio or video content. They combine AI engines and hundreds of human workers all over the world who are paid over the Lightning Network to assemble these transcripts. And that's what lets Stackwork create better, faster, and less expensive transcripts. To see the results for yourself, you can check out my personal website where I host transcripts for all my podcast episodes. If you want to learn more about Stackwork, visit stackwork.com. That is STAK work.com. Okay. If you could only hold one asset for the next decade and it could not be Bitcoin, what asset would it be?
Ethereum.
Okay. Interesting.
I know that's going to scare the
crowd. What is one book that has meaningfully changed your view of the world?
View of the world. It's so predictable, but How to Win Friends and Influence People is like, well, I read it every year. I just think it's genius.
It's a really good one. I think he has another one too that I enjoyed. It's how to. So this is Dale Carnegie, right?
Yeah, Dale Carnegie.
Yeah, he has another one. It's how to stop worrying and start living, which is, it doesn't get as much attention as that one, but I thought it was equally as good. So great recommendation.
Can I throw another one in, a cheeky bonus one?
Sure.
I know this is lightning round, so I'll speak very quickly. Is I think it's Never Meet in the Middle, or the Don't Negotiate with Terrorists one.
Right. Yeah.
That's
amazing. I know which one you're talking about. Yeah.
Anyway.
Never split the difference.
That's the one.
That's the one. Okay. Who's one person in the Bitcoin and Lightning ecosystem that you'd like to give a shout out to for doing great work?
Oh, what a great question. I would say Christian. I want to. Oh no, I'm really bad. I've forgotten his surname. I want to say Christian Moss from Zebedee. Like, yeah, he has been like instrumental to helping us. Super smart, super kind, like humble guy, and has done some very cool stuff with this tech. So yeah, he's changed a lot for us. So yeah, I would shout Christian.
Cool. And then final question: how many Bitcoin gamers exist in the world today? How many people are using Bitcoin games where you can actually earn sats today?
I would guess between 5 to 10 million.
Wow, it's pretty solid. If we think about Bitcoin's, maybe Bitcoiners in general is maybe only 100, 200 million. That's a pretty solid chunk.
Yeah, I would get. I don't think they use it every day, but I think they, once a month.
Yeah.
I mean, we have around, what was it, around 500,000 MAU? No, less than that now, like 300,000 MAU monthly active users.
Mm.
Like, we are the biggest, but we're not huge. So, like, I think there's, it's not like, oh, it's just Bitcoin miner and then everything else is tiny. I think, especially with some of the things that are going live now, I think it's growing quite quickly.
Yeah.
That's what's exciting about this space as well, because it's tiny, like relatively,
Yeah.
like, yeah.
Very cool. Okay, just to finish this off, where can listeners go to learn more about you and Fumb Games?
Yes. So best things to do is follow us on Twitter. So at Fumb Games or at Bitcoin Miner FG, all one word, obviously. On Twitter, that's if you want to follow Bitcoin Miner. But Fumb Games is probably where most of our stuff happens. Also, we do a lot in Discord, so we share a lot of things. So Fumb Games on Discord is where to be. We have 100,000 people in there now. We do a lot of stuff with the community. We're not noisy Discord. We're not like atting everyone. We do like one update a week. So yeah, Discord noise is real. So we keep it quiet.
Very cool. Well, thank you again for taking the time. I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation and hope we can do it again soon.
Thanks, Kevin. Pleasure.
All right. In the last 30 days, you guys sent in 32,292 sats, and that came in from 43 different supporters. We have a number of comments as well from the last episode or two. Let's run through those real quick. First up, we have on episode 109 with Barack on building Arc. Blockchain Boog says, I have a better understanding of Arc. Just 2 comments. I saw a tweet thread by Lalu with critiques of Arc. Maybe Barack didn't see it. And 2, when can we expect to see actual code running? I think this is the challenge with building out a new protocol. And I don't want to speak for Arc here, but the challenge of building anything new is that timing is something that you can't really predict. You're going from 0 to 1. So I don't know when the kind of timeline is for Arc to release code, but I know they're working on it. Barack actually did an AMA, I believe, on Stacker News last week. So there's lots of questions and answers there as well if you're interested in following up with Barack and asking more questions about the protocol. But thank you for the comment and for the sats, Blockchain Boog. BTC McBoatface sent in 2,100 sats and said, fantastic news in response to episode 109. Joe Martin sent in 2,100 sats and said, great episode. We also have some comments from the recent Stacking Sats episode I did with the Bitcoin Hotel. And again, Blockchain Boog said, when I go to Germany, I am going to this hotel. We had Joe Martin say, great episode. Can't wait to visit the Bitcoin Hotel this August. Perhaps Joe is going on a little tour through Germany. And then we had Garfield 218 who said, great episode. I visited the #1 Bitcoin Hotel a couple of times. Strongly recommend to go there when you need accommodations near Stuttgart, Speden. And it's like hodl, but for spending. So thank you, Garfield 218, for the comment and for the sats. All right, that's all for the last week or so in comments. Thank you again to everyone who's been supporting the show, and I can't wait to see what you guys send in this week.